Hello everyone, Usman here, back with another video. So I am going to be talking about Marvel Studios' Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm going to be giving a review for it. I'm actually going to be splitting it into two different parts. One is just going to be like the non-spoiler review, and then the other one's just going to be like the spoiler review. So it's just going to be me talking about like a bunch of stuff that happened in the movie. So just want to let you know, it's going to be a non-spoiler review at first, and then later on down the line, I'm going to make it like a spoiler review. So I'm just going to go down and just talk about like all this sort of different things that, I would love to talk about. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, as well as leave a comment letting me know, have you seen the movie? Did you like the movie, love the movie, I don't know, hate it, I guess. It would be kind of weird to hate it considering, how big of a movie it is, I guess. But whatever. Just let me know down below in the comments what you think, and just would love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so my thoughts. I love the movie. I loved it a lot. It is, I think, my favorite movie of like the MCU Spider-Man trilogy that they've made. I think it's like my favorite MCU/Marvel movie that even came out this year, as well as favorite movie that came out this year, period. I just think it's a phenomenal film. I loved every bit of it. I saw it in the theater, and it was just like, it got like a bunch of crazy crowd reactions, and I was just joining in with that as well because I was just so in love with everything that they'd done with it. I thought the performances were really great. I think Tom Holland, the guy who plays Spider-Man, he did a phenomenal job specifically with his Spider-Man. He does like, I think this is, like a lot of people said, this is like his best performance. I think I agree, it's his best performance. We get to see more of him as Spider-Man, just going through a bunch of different things and just everything in this movie that we've never really got to see that much of a Spider-Man with. And I've really enjoyed his other Spider-Man movies, like the other Spider-Man movies he was in, the Avengers movies, Captain America Civil War, like all of those movies, like I really enjoyed even beforehand with him. But I just think that in this movie specifically, it just upped his game and just made it much more enticing. The villains that came back, obviously, Alfred, Molina, Jamie Foxx, and Willem Dafoe as Doc Ock, Electro, and Green Goblin, they deliver in their performances and just excel at it specifically just a lot. They're still back to playing them wonderfully. It's just phenomenal. And then I'm going to be using that word a lot. I'm sorry. The side characters I think are still pretty interesting. They develop more of like MJ and Ned a little bit in their sort of relationship to Peter and how they are. It's still pretty cool. I like to see that sort of dynamic between them. That's still kind of nice, and developing that within the three movies that we've seen them in. So that's cool. The use of Doctor Strange and how he is, I just think that it's great to see him in it as well, and sort of going more into how he uses his abilities as a sorcerer and how like he's able to use that, all the effects they're able to use. I just think that's great because I feel like in the other movies we never really got to see it. I mean, we did, but I feel like in this movie specifically we got to see him use his magic, like literally just like crazy. Like we see more of the sorcery from the Sorcerer Supreme, and I think that's phenomenal just to see that as well. A lot of great surprises, a lot of cool things going on in this film. Definitely a great film. I don't know about, I guess maybe a couple things here and there, maybe for cons. I don't know, there was one thing, but I'll talk about it in the spoiler review. But otherwise, so far, what I would say is that it was a great movie. I loved it a lot, and I'm going to be seeing it multiple times. And it's one of my favorite Spider-Man movies of all time. Don't know if it's going to be like the top tier Spider-Man movie for me. Maybe not. I'm not so sure, but we'll see. But it's packed with fan service, and it's packed with like a lot of other cool stuff. So depending on how you feel about fan service, that's really up to you, whether you like that or love that, or you just think that's not really something that you think makes a movie great. It's up to you, but I thought it was awesome, so whatever. I would give it like, I don't know, like a 9.5 out of 10, I guess, probably. So close to giving it a 10 out of 10, but I just feel like that would be way too nearly perfect, so maybe. But I'll go into more of other stuff in the spoiler review. So I'm going to start spoiling. This is going to be my spoiler review right now. So if you want to click away, just not want to hear anything about this movie at all, then you can click away, and then, that's just how it's going to be. But I'm going to be talking spoilers, so you've been warned, okay? And 3, 2, 1. So this movie was packed with a lot of stuff, like in regards to, well, let's just start with which a lot of people have been sort of talking about, like, the thing that people have been anticipating for so long. The leaks have been real. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are back in this movie, and they are excellent. I think I agree with a lot of people when they say that Andrew Garfield's performance has definitely been sort of like the main sort of thing that has been great about this film specifically, because for me, he's my least favorite Spider-Man, and even after seeing this movie, he still is. But I think this is probably his best performance as the character for his iteration of Spider-Man, because the amount of depth and even just the acting he does, I just think that he delivers it like wonderfully in this film. Tobey Maguire, he's still my favorite Spider-Man, and even after watching this movie, I still think he delivered it wonderfully, even after 14 years of like him not playing the character, just with the way that, just his acting with the other Spider-Man, with Tom Holland Spider-Man, with Andrew Garfield, just playing like a very mature type of Spider-Man, just being sort of serious in that regard and whatever else. It was great. Just seeing them all together, all three of them together, teaming up, that was just great. It was really just like, yeah, a nostalgic type of moment because I grew up with these movies just like about almost everybody else who, watched the Spider-Man movies. The villains, obviously, great. Green Goblin, like a lot of people said, and even he's pretty much the main villain of this movie. Willem Dafoe, he was the actor who played him in the original Spider-Man movies. He was like, that was a bad interpretation of his laugh. But, when he played him in the movie, he was very menacing. He was very still crazy. He gave that sort of, very crazy performance. He was crazy in the first Spider-Man movie, but I feel like with this, he went even more, just he went even more with the crazy, and even just the fight scenes that he had with Tom Holland Spider-Man specifically. There was a scene I think when he was in the apartment building of something of Happy's, and Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man and his Green Goblin were fighting, and that scene was crazy, just the action going on, and it was just hand-to-hand combat, just that whole thing rather than just a bunch of CGI everything. That was a pretty crazy fight scene even for a PG-13 movie, and I really liked that. It was really, you could see just sort of the emotion going into it, and of course even the final battle when both him and Goblin are going at it again, and him just beating just beating him up like crazy. It was insane. It was definitely an emotional Spider-Man. A lot of people were like, I cried. I don't cry during movies. I really don't. But I felt it. I felt the emotions running through, and it worked more for me than what it worked for when I was watching Hawkeye, personally. Aunt May, who is basically Peter's aunt and basically sort of raised him and everything like that. She was the character who died in this movie. That was kind of the main reason of why. I mean, in that regard, he kind of took that and he suffered from that because the Goblin basically killed her. And he consults with the other Spider-Man about it, and he's like, oh, great power comes great responsibility. She said that to me. The Uncle Ben said that, and he's like, I'm not aware of Uncle Ben, but, it's a different iteration of that, so whatever. But just seeing that together, just hearing that, it was just like, oh gosh, that was, like I said, it was great, and it just motivated him to become better as a person, a better, sort of more mature Spider-Man, I guess, that kind of thing. A lot of people kept on complaining about Spider-Man fans that his version of Spider-Man just is always too reliant on technology, too reliant on Tony Stark, doesn't suffer, has never suffered, he's beyond perfect, and I'm like, I don't think he's beyond perfect. He's made a lot of mistakes in these movies. He suffered because Tony Stark, Iron Man, died. That was his mentor type of character, in the movie, kind of acted like sort of a father to him, a father figure to him. So that's what I would say. And that sort of left a mark on him in Far From Home, and probably even just in the future as well. He was snapped away for the blipped or whatever for the 5 years, so he was theoretically dead for 5 years, and everybody else that he loved dead. So that was also a big moment too. So there's that sort of impact in that whole thing regarding that, and going through even in Homecoming where he was toppled with all the building stuff debris. He's like, I can't get off. He still is a Spider-Man that cares and wants to do the right thing, even in those other movies. So it was just kind of weird to hear people say that. So I kind of disagree with those people in that regard. I kind of think that he's suffered and he's been through some things even before this movie, even before, it's at the end where people forget who he is because of Doctor Strange wiping out everything, wiping people's memories of him in general after sending all the other villains and other characters back to their respective universes. He just clears a clean slate and soft reboot for Spider-Man. So now Spider-Man is, for me, I'm just I think him becoming basically just the proper, proper Spider-Man, I guess, from the comics, him just being alone and broke and stuff like that, and just doing stuff on his own. I think that's phenomenal, just seeing that again. It's a form of development, and developing him from this to that, it's great. And also he's in a universe of superheroes, so it's different, where he was I love Stark or Iron Man and stuff, and I love the Avengers, I want to be an Avenger. I just think that was pretty cool anyways. I know people complained about it, but I just don't feel that strongly about it, and I really think they did a great job. And it makes me excited to see what they do with future Spider-Man movies, because I heard they're making another Spider-Man movie, a fourth one's in development after this one, so hopefully they don't go back into multiverse stuff. I loved it as a fan service, all that stuff, but I hope they go into newer villains and new form of mythology for his iteration of Spider-Man. So that's what I think. The humor could sometimes even just be a little bit I don't know, they didn't have to add so much humor to it. They could just have more sort of emotional scenes, but they packed it in with emotion. Sometimes I actually kind of laughed at it, maybe because I was oh, I get it, that kind of thing, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's sort of a con. With Tobey's Spider-Man, the one thing that kind of not confused me, but it was kind of just interesting how he didn't really discuss anything that happened to him after Spider-Man 3. We didn't really because we never got a Spider-Man 4 afterwards, so I was kind of like, okay, well, what happens to his Spider-Man after so long? They never really explained it, so maybe it's left for us fans to fill in the blanks, I guess, or just make up our own sort of history as to what happened to him afterwards. But I guess this movie acts as Spider-Man 4 for him and Amazing Spider-Man 3 for Andrew Garfield, because it's basically like continuing the stories for those iterations of Spider-Man. Wonderful movie overall. Definitely adds the fan service, adds the different sort of pop culture stuff, the memes, the whatever. I'm something of a scientist myself. That was, of course, they're going to use that. I'm not surprised. I don't really understand how those even became memes, to be honest, but you could make a meme out of anything. And a lot of those memes aren't even that really funny. They're just kind of stupid. But either way, some memes could be, I guess, subjective, whatever. It depends on you. Overall, I don't know if I don't know what else I could tell you. Oh, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, is in this movie. He's only in it for, I think, a minute. He was just great, and it was Charlie Cox's Daredevil, Matt Murdock. I mean, he's only came out as Matt Murdock. He wasn't in costume. That was a great scene, and it was cool to see him interact with Tom Holland's Peter Parker, see the whole thing, and I hope we see him in more stuff afterwards, and it wasn't just some random cameo type of appearance. I can't wait to see more of this, to see him hopefully more and everything else like that. And great film, maybe a couple things here and there with that, but 9.5 out of 10. It's definitely a rewatch. Definitely see this movie. If you're a Spider-Man fan, everything like that, like everybody else has been mentioning. And I bet you won't be disappointed, but it's subjective. That's all I could say. So yeah, those are my thoughts. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment, and I will see you next time.